everyone and welcome to Autocrat. This is episode 98, insert wolf trope here.
Have you done it?
Good.
Good, we'll now carry on.
We have arrived at perhaps one of the most famous moments in Roman mythology. Romulus and Remus, not Remus Lupin from Harry Potter.
How do you do this every 5 episodes?
They have been condemned to die. We'll see how well that goes.
Not that well, they've got a werewolf there.
I mean, it works so well for people like Oedipus in Paris.
Yeah, how hard can it be to kill 2 children that are prophesied to come back in some way?
We are mostly going to be following the narrative of Plutarch, Dio and Livy for this episode, by the way.
Yes, I think I've condensed everything into one narrative this time rather than just by source. Although It's been a while since I wrote these notes, so I'm going off what I can see here.
Good. Well, you're going to lead us on then?
Alright. We left off, if you remember, with a servant or multiple servants about to get rid of the 2 sons of Rhea.
Yep.
He was going to throw them into the river in a trough, but he was too timid to go near the river because it had burst its banks. So, he dumped them by the riverbank and then just left. The river at length rose so high that it swept the boys in their trough away. They eventually landed at a place called Sermanus, or Kermanus. It's spelt with a C, but I think Romans used a harsh C sound. Now, Livy says the river was swollen, and so the servants thought the slow flooded water would do their job for them, as they couldn't get to the river itself. Dio says that Faustulus the shepherd was meant to expose them, but didn't. So we get a wide variety of traditions, but either way, they don't immediately die. A wild fig tree apparently grew in this place, which Plutarch goes into far too much detail about that I'm not going to.
But what colour were its leaves?
Probably green. It might also have been where they were left in the first place, and apparently it was known as the Romulus fig tree. And according to the Origo, the boys' basket got stuck on this fig tree, so that's how they ended up in this place after drifting downstream.
Do you think the figs were juicy?
Plutarch probably says something about that, I can't remember. But I'm going to go with maybe. And it's here that a female wolf finds the boys.
Oh!
And she suckles them, while a woodpecker brings them food and looks after them. And yes, this is that wolf with the 2 babies image that you see everywhere. As for the wolf species, because I had to go into a dive on that, this would be a grey wolf, Canis lupus, which is spread across 3 continents. But that's not relevant.
Which continent?
I'm going to say Europe, Africa and Asia.
Probably.
Yeah, it's been a while since I looked at the IUCN red list for this. The wolf was only there because she wanted a drink from the river Tiber, so it's pure coincidence these boys were found. However, the wolf and the woodpecker are notably holy to Mars, their possible dad. Yeah. Plutarch cast some doubt on this story, wondering if instead there was a man called Faustulus who brought them up, so the guy who was ordered to kill them might just have thought, I'm going to raise them. His wife might have been a woman of the night, shall we say. She had a dubious profession.
Yeah.
They were, in Latin, called lupae, which is also what wolves were called, which might be where the confusion came from. This woman was, by the way, called Acca Laurentia. Just a fun little name detail in case you wanted it. The Origo kind of supports this by saying Faustulus rescued them after the wolf gave them milk and then took them to his wife of the same name. Faustulus may instead just have given them to her directly as a friend after he couldn't kill them as the king had commanded. Dio adds that the woman who raised them, maybe after or instead of the wolf, had just given birth to a dead child, sadly, so, would have had the capacity to raise them. I'm going to skip the random story Plutarch goes into here because much like Ovid's tangents, we don't need it. Instead, I'm just going to say Faustulus was a pig farmer for Amulius.
Okay.
He raised Romulus and Remus without anybody knowing about it. Those realists in the sources apparently think that their actual grandfather Numitor might have had a helping hand in this. They went to school in a region called Gabii. Yes, we have their school now. That's the level of detail we're working with. Possibly, it's at this point they get their names Romulus and Remus from the word ruma, meaning teat.
Okay.
It's not very glamorous. These boys were naturally large and beautiful, indicating their noble birth. They were courageous and masculine. Romulus acted on advice of others, just as a ruler would have done. I'm assuming because the ancient sources think that the idea of being a ruler can be hereditary in its traits. Whatever Romulus did, even when hunting or managing flocks of sheep, he indicated he was a natural ruler. Now, as they grew up, Romulus and Remus pushed back against robbers. Hold on to that.
Okay.
This is because we get a fight between the cattle herders of Numitor and Amulius. Amulius's herders chased away Numitor's men. Remember, Numitor is in exile, not dead. And because these men were hassling them, they stole most of the cattle. Numitor was outraged, and Amulius's partisans began gathering slaves who'd run away and desperate people. In fact, it looked like the first embers of an uprising. Basically, not a good time. Now, even Remus couldn't escape the growing carnage. Numitor's partisans attacked him while Romulus was away sacrificing. Remus was accused, before Numitor, who he'd been dragged in front of stealing the cows. Numitor was afraid of incurring his brother's wrath in punishing this random lad he didn't know and definitely wasn't his secret grandchild. He went to Amulius accordingly and asked for justice. The populace thought that Remus had been unfairly treated, and so public pressure forced him to give Remus to Numitor for consequences. Numitor brought him back to his house and apparently carries him, which might indicate how badly he's been beaten up by the people who were hassling him. He was obviously, you'll be shocked to learn, amazed by Remus's confidence and general awesomeness. He accordingly asks who Remus is. Remus thought that Numitor was more noble than Amulius, by the way, since he listened to evidence before just randomly punishing people. Remus answered Numitor that he believed he and his brother were the sons of Faustulus and Laurentia, because why would you believe anything different? However, since he's been threatened and all these bad things have been happening, Remus might as well say there are rumours about them. Apparently, they were said to have been raised by birds and beasts as they lay in a trough. The trough still existed and had writing inscribed on it, you know, those kinds of stories. Numitor thought this story sounded familiar. Plus, the dates line up given this man's age, but he doesn't dare hope though. Instead, he thinks about how to get access to his daughter, Rhea Ilia. Now, Faustulus finds out that Remus has been taken and enlists Romulus to help get him back. He also tells Romulus, frankly this time, the story of his birth. Livy's story has Faustulus only suspecting the royal birth of the twins, but details. Faustulus now brings this trough Remus had mentioned to Numitor, hiding it in his cloak so the sentries wouldn't see. Now, this doesn't really work, and he's eventually forced to reveal it by questioning. Now, there's one guy in the audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
He recognises this trough because he was there at the exposure of Romulus and Remus. So, he reveals this to Amulius, and Faustulus is immediately brought in for questioning. However, Faustulus says that the twins now live far away, after he eventually has to admit that they survived. He was going to bring the trough to their mother, he says, who wanted to know her children were alive. You can practically see the halo around his head that says, I'm not bringing this to Numitor. Amulius immediately sends a man to his brother to find out whether he knows anything about this. This messenger is, however, a friend of Numitor's. So, he finds Remus being embraced and loved by Numitor, presumably because he's now worked out that this is his grandson, and advises them to act quickly. Romulus has nearly caught up to them, and he's quickly amassing a following of people who hate Amulius. As you can see, he got help. Romulus's side of the story, because we've mostly been focused on Remus so far, is that he gathered the shepherds around the city and told them to converge at a given time at the palace. He also brings an army subdivided into what are called maniples of 100 men, with each of their captains carrying a little clump of grass and bushes stuck to a stick. This is basically a way of explaining where maniples came from as an idea. Romulus attacks, and Remus incites the population within Alba Longa to rebel against their king. So Remus has a second group of men under his control, and both of them are now converging on the king. Amulius, who, remember, is possibly their father, doesn't know where to turn. In the chaos, Amulius is seized, and he is killed. Once Amulius dies, the twins don't want to take power themselves, and they don't want someone else to take power. So, they put Numitor back on the throne. We'll get to the rest, however, next time. Because once Amulius is dead, Numitor summons a meeting and lays out the crimes of Amulius and blames himself for his brother's death. He's reacclaimed as king, his grandson's leading the procession. Now Numitor is only given 1 year after the death of Amulius by the Nuremberg Chronicle, so this installation happens in 754 BCE, like we said last time. Eutropius skips over all of this detail and goes straight to the events of next episode, as you might expect, because, believe me, episode 100 is going to be noteworthy. I should say next narrative episode, by the way. As a final note, Romulus is apparently a name that comes from the word Rome with a hat on the O, meaning strength in Greek.
Okay. So, to recap what you've just told me.
Yes.
Numitor's on the throne.
Yep.
It's 754 BCE.
Yep.
So, does that mean there's only one story left to cover?
It does, but not yet.
Oh.
First, we're going to be recapping chapter 3. We will then get to the famous story that everyone is probably waiting for at the start of chapter 4.
Which will be episode 100.
It will. So, until our recap and then episode 100, thank you all for listening, and until next time, have a great week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.